Hey, what's going on, guys? Ivan Yosuf here, and welcome to another tutorial using CSS, where we'll be learning how to create this image of a birdhouse, and we'll be using CSS shapes to create this image. Now, I did not initially create this image. There is a tutorial on this birdhouse at this website, vecteasy.com. And they show us how to create this image using Adobe Illustrator, but we'll be learning how to create this almost exact same image using only HTML and CSS. And I also added this simple animation here of this flower that is rotating. So this is what we'll be doing, and let's go ahead and get started. So first I'm going to create a index.html, and I'll be using Sublime, but you can use whatever editor you like. And I load the file into the browser. Okay. So let's start with the boilerplate. So these are the defaults. Okay. So we'll be creating the image inside of this container. And we'll be adding all the divs inside of the birdhouse, but let's start with the container first. So positioning and giving it left, right, top and bottom, and margin auto will center the container, which is 600 by 600 pixels. Okay, so let's start with the birdhouse. Now for the birdhouse, in CSS it's kind of hard to create this it's kind of hard to create this shape over here. So what we're going to do is we're going to create this rectangle area first, and then we're going to create this triangle, and when we get to the triangle I'll tell you how to do that. So for the background, as you see, we have these lines. So we have this white color, and then we have this grayish color. So we're going to be using linear gradient to achieve that effect. Okay. So the background will not be a color, it will be a linear color, I mean a linear gradient. And we give the color and then we give the percentage. So this is from 0 to 17 it's red, and then from 17 to the bottom is green. Then if you want to make a color stop, we need to give it another percent. And yeah, I need to give another one. So so the green is between 17 and 20%. So it's 3 pixels or 3% of the all of the height of the image. And this is how we're going to be adding these colors. So 20. Okay, let me see now. Some red, green. Okay, it's red, green. Okay, I know it's kind of like repetitive, but that's the best way we can add linear gradients in order to achieve that effect. So instead of these colors, I just did to show you how the colors will stack up. We're gonna substitute these ones for the colors from the image. This will be FF, FF, F6. Okay, so this is the rectangle part of the house. It's done. Now inside of the birdhouse, let me actually guys explain you what is going on here. So this triangle area here, there's a way in CSS to create triangles using the border property, but unfortunately if you create a triangle using the border property, you cannot give it a radial gradient, I mean a linear gradient. You can give it a solid background color, I mean solid border color, but you cannot give it a linear gradient. So in CSS there is this property called clip path, and it's kind of new. So not all browsers support it, and with clip path we can create this complex shape. But unfortunately, I mean, I'm not gonna be showing you how to use it right now. Maybe in future tutorials we'll see how to use clip path. What I'm gonna do right now is for this triangle, I'm actually gonna create a. Let me show you this. So I'm gonna create a rectangle, and then I'm gonna rotate it 45 degrees, and then I'm gonna hide this bottom part. So we're gonna, for the roof, for the top part of the roof, we'll create this rectangle, I think, and then we'll rotate it 45 degrees to achieve this triangle on top. Okay, so inside of the birdhouse, we're gonna add this roof, and this roof will be that triangle. Let me add actually a background so we see where it is. Okay. Now, this inside of this roof, inside of this, actually create it like that. Okay, so this is the square where we'll be adding another square that will be rotating, and then everything that is outside of the roof will be hidden. So for the roof, we'll add a before, and it will have the same dimensions as the roof element. And then for the background, this will be a linear gradient. So actually, let me just put it. And actually I want to give it position absolute. Okay, so what we need to do right now, and I'll change the colors in a minute. Just I want to show you how it works. So we will rotate it. Now remember, we're rotating the before element, which is part of the roof. We're not rotating the roof itself, but this pseudo element that is attached to the roof. So first of all, here in the roof we'll be adding overflow hidden. So everything that is outside of the roof will be cropped out, and that means we need to bring this before down so that it shows. Okay, now one thing that we also need to do is we need to change this the angle of the linear gradient, because right now, since we rotated the whole before element, we need to change the angle. And before we give the colors, we'll add the angle, which in this case is 135 degree. Okay, and the last thing we want to do is we want, well, first of all, let me remove the background on the roof. Okay, we also want to give it a z-index of -1, so the house is on top of it. So z-index -1. Okay, and then we need again to change the colors here. So this is the first color, and this is the second color. Okay, and there we have the shape of the house, including these linear gradients. And believe it or not, guys, but this was actually the hardest part, and the most kind of boring thing is writing all these color stops in order to create this linear gradient effect. Again, if we're using clip path, we can create this shape and just give these color stops. It will be much faster and easier, but we'll be doing clip path in future tutorials. Okay, so next we also want to add this part of the roofs over here. Okay, transform origin. We'll give it for the left. So we'll add the transform origin over here on the left side of the, because by default they're in the center. Okay. So we're pretty much moving it to the left 80%, and then with the transform we are moving it 80% horizontal, I mean to the left, and 100% to the top, and then we rotate it 45 degrees. So if you didn't have this rotation, so this is just moving it to the left, and then we rotate it, and we'll do the same for the right roof. And this is not left, this will be right 80%. And for the transform origin, we'll move it to the right, and then we'll translate it. I mean transform it. Okay, and if these things are kind of confusing, you can just play around with the values to see how the shapes will move around. But I just pretty much put them where I want them to be. Okay. Then the next thing we want to do is we want to add this hole in the center. And underneath the hole we'll have the base. So the base will be this this thing at the bottom. Okay, so let's do the hole. Now we'll add a border around the hole. And the last thing, we just need to position it in the horizontally in the center. And I'm actually gonna move it from the top 10 pixels. Okay. Now we'll create the base. Now in order to center the base inside of the house, you'll see that the base is bigger than the width of the house. So if I give it left 0, right 0, margin auto, it will not work because the height of the house is smaller than the height of the width of the house is smaller than the width of the base. So if the base is, for example, 200, it will be centered because the base, the child element, is smaller than the parent element. But if you have a child element that is bigger than the parent element, it will start always from the 0, from the left side of the parent element. So in order to remove that, we're just gonna give left 50%, and then we'll transform it and give it translate minus 50%. So this is how we center absolutely positioned elements when they are bigger than the parent. Okay, so we're actually pretty much done. We just need to add these flowers, and for them I'm gonna create a separate kind of container, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create divs with the class of flowers, and for the color I will give different classes for the colors and different classes for the size, because some of these are, for example, this is bigger, this is smaller. And for this one I'll create a separate div span with the class of center for this one. Okay, so for each flower I will create it using the before and after element. Okay, let me see. This should be. So for each flower, we're gonna give it a background depending on the color class. So if a flower has a color class of pink, the background will be pink. And then before, we'll create this shape, the same shape as the flower, but we'll rotate it 60 degrees. And for the after, we'll create the same shape, but we'll rotate it 120 degrees. So this is how we'll create this flower. I mean the pink flower. Okay, and for the center, and for the center we also need to give it the color. So actually let me add the other colors here. So we'll have the white flower, and the yellow flower. Okay, this should be a background. Okay. So for the yellow, okay, actually let me position the flowers. Okay, this is the first one. And actually for the center to appear in the flowers, here at the center we need to add a z-index of 1. Pink flower. Okay, let me position the flowers first and go. Okay, Okay, so these are the flowers. I'm not sure why the center doesn't appear. Pink. Oh, wait. Is that? Oh, that's... Sorry, I made a mistake here. It should be a dot. Okay. And this should be... Okay, there we have it. So the yellow flower has a white dot. The center is white for the yellow. Actually, it's white. Okay. And we also added two classes for the sizes, big and small. So let's add them here. And we'll be scaling them. Okay, and for the small one, we'll scale it down. Okay, and the last thing we want to do is for this first flower that is near the hole, I'm gonna add a rotation. I'll make it rotate. Okay, and then we have it. The last thing, we're gonna remove the border around the container. And that's all. Actually, here for the animation, we need to add linear at the end. Because by default it's easing, and we want to the rotation to be continuous. Like it will rotate from 0 to 359, and then it will start from 0 again. Okay, well, I'll see you guys in the next tutorial.